Yo, what's going on, everyone? Welcome in. Day two of Vacation Snaps as we're all over the place right now. I am currently at Los Olivos, which is a fascinating California town. It's an old Western town, Aaron. It used to be where if you were driving your stagecoach from LA to San Francisco, you would stop here. I actually saw a guest book from 1895. They still have the signatures and everything. It's whatever. Cool town. Crazy part is it's in this valley where every mile you get inland, the climate changes by a full degree. So at the beginning of
Damn.
the valley, the west to the east, we're talking a 30-degree difference. What that means is it actually has every single climate that the entire country of France has. And so all they do is make wine here, and they make a ton of wine. And so all I've been doing for a day is just tasting delicious wines. It's been absolutely fantastic. So I'm in a great mood. I did, however, leave my computer, so we are doing this with popsicle sticks and glue. I've got my phone. I'm in the hotel room. You're still at St. Simon's, I believe. How's the beach going?
The beach is absolutely phenomenal. Chasing little man all day today. Lots of dirt in the butt. I mean, the amount of dirt that somehow gets in the pants,
Yeah.
it's a mess. But we're having fun, having a good time.
Well,
Yeah. No,
well,
we're not drinking. Once again, this just shows you the difference between T-Bob and I, the center of attention's in wine country, enjoying a nice vacation. I'm
yeah.
over here actually being a parent, parenting on vacation. For those who don't think that T-Bob just lives this glorious life, you are misled 100%.
So the best part is, yeah. Normally we don't have grandparents around, but my mom lives here. So yes, we did leave the kids with mom for the day. So it's been awesome. It has been really spectacular. Okay, but let's get into the show today. We got some Georgia talk to lead off. We got Dan Lanning. I'm getting some comments in on Colorado leaving the Big 12. And then we have a story that at this point is alleged, but not only is it insane, but it's actually kind of perfect for our juvenile sense of humor to break down. So I think it's going to be a very fun show today. It has to do with a major four-star recruit or player transferring from Clemson to Ole Miss. Let's start though, Aaron, with your Georgia Bulldogs. Seth Emerson, who covers Georgia for The Athletic, just came out with a piece. Now, he's not willing to go full. He's not willing to go all the way in, and I appreciate why. You can't be a team's beat writer and go all the way in. You'll get ostracized and probably get murdered by Kirby Smart, like we saw what happened to that other journalist. But I'm feeling a little validated today, Aaron, because Seth wrote 3 reasons why Georgia may not
Yes.
win another national championship. And let's go through them. Reason number 1, it's right in line with what I've talked about in the past. Reason 1, quarterback. And basically
Yep.
going to Carson Beck, that as good as he's looked, Aaron, he is still a relative unknown.
Yeah, well, he is an unknown. I mean, most of the time he's played during his career at Georgia has been backup time. He's not been a full time starter, and you can project all you want, which is what I've done for the past few months. I'm projecting because I have seen more than the average fan. I've been to a ton of practices. I've been to a ton of scrimmages. I've talked to people inside the building that know the position, like I know the position, and kind of say, okay, if the mental side of the game is there, which he's told me, and he's talked to people about this, and you can kind of catch that, I believe, in the article as well, that he wasn't mentally ready to go 2 years ago. Nothing to do with the physical tools.
Yeah.
The physical tools have always been there. But he feels like he's more mentally ready to go, understands the playbook, understands what's expected of him as a quarterback of a major university, which is all well and good. Like that it all sounds great. I get that. It sounds great that he's saying that he's mentally ready to go, he's physically ready to go. And it's great to know that I and Coach Bobo and other people that know the quarterback position can see the physical tools. He still has to go out there and produce. And I agree, it is a question mark until he goes out there and not against a cupcake game. Really, the South Carolina game is going to be the big test. Say all you want that Georgia's way better than South Carolina. South Carolina will field a good defense this year. It's not an elite defense. It's a good defense. And that's why I'm interested to see if he goes out there and balls out and throws 4 or 5 touchdowns, then I feel good about him against LSU in the SEC championship game, or Alabama, or Ohio State, or against Michigan later on. But if he goes out there in week 3 and just plays okay versus South Carolina, then I start to think that there's more of a panic from the Georgia fan base about, we've waited for Carson Beck to be this amazing quarterback, and he's just okay.
Like I said, man, I've been banging this drum, and to me, it's not even about Carson Beck as much. I just still think that Stetson Bennett was that good in the biggest
He
moment,
was.
and that fans
Yep.
continue to underappreciate him, right? So like Carson Beck could be really good, but Stetson Bennett was near perfect when it mattered. And can he be that? We'll see.
But,
Okay,
but I don't think he needs to. I don't think he needs to.
well, Bennett needed to, otherwise they wouldn't have won it.
Bennett needed to, but this Georgia team this year is the best of the 3 years. That's the difference.
What?
This team
How
is
is that
better.
possible? After you lose 15 draft picks 2 years ago, you lose more draft picks last year. How is it possible that
Because
this year's team is the best?
Because of the transfer portal. They crushed the portal. I mean, you look at the offense side of the football, you bring in 2 elite receivers, Ra and Dominic Lovett. So Stetson never had a deep receiving core. Stetson had Brock, which is great. He had Darnell. Well, guess what? Carson gets Brock, and Carson gets Brock as a junior. So Brock's going to be at his best. You get Ladd McConkey. Hey, Sharon back there in her little bikini looking all fine and sexy and whatnot. You get elite receiving
That's how
play.
we juice up the YouTube views, dude. This is how we win, dude.
Get Sharon, who's in incredible shape right now. That's right.
Now I'm a little
nude tanning behind us.
Now I'm a little upset that we let you use the whitewash background.
Yeah, I should have been the back of the ball. Jesus, unfuckable. All right, back to it. Stetson hasn't had this type of receiving core, or did not have this type of receiving core for 2 years. So offensively, there isn't going to be as much of a Stetson go win us the game because we're struggling at receiving. We're here. This is an elite offense with elite playmakers at every position, plus an offensive line that's going to be ranked in the top 5 offensive lines in the country when it's all said and done. So I think, to me, that's why I'm saying Carson Beck is not going to have to be Stetson Bennett. If he plays within himself, the offense will dictate him and give him the ability to put up crazy stats, and just be able to be essentially a game manager and not have to push the limit.
Well, yeah, for the majority of the year until he runs into somebody good that he's going to have to, and that remains my concern.
I mean, what defense are they going to face that's elite too? I mean, even LSU, which I'm high on LSU, to me is still not going to be a top 10 tough.
If they end up playing them, really solid. Michigan's will be great. I'm sure.
I wouldn't say they were great.
Okay, well, we'll see. You've said your piece on Carson Beck. I don't need any more of your Mike Bobo infused propagandist bullshit. Even though I'm surprised that there was nary a mention of Bobo in the article when you're talking about, because arguably Todd Monken, you could argue, is the biggest departure than even Stetson Bennett. But I would
say this. I'll end it with that. I think there's more concern with Bobo replacing Monken than there is Carson replacing Stetson.
Yeah,
way more.
I could see that. So I'm surprised that Emerson didn't mention it. Second reason that Emerson mentioned was a bit interesting because it's one that I have not considered, and he kind of calls into question a bit the interior defensive line. And I know they've recruited well, and I'm sure they have all 4 and 5 stars there. But you look, the last 2 years, you've lost 4 first-round picks on that defensive line. First-round picks. It's just basically impossible to replace 4 first-round picks. You lose Bear Alexander in the offseason. Again, you still have talent. It's maybe a bit more improvement. You still have elite linebackers on the inside, so that's obviously going to help immensely. And he does kind of, he doesn't say, he's saying they should be fine, but it's maybe something to keep an eye on, as he calls in the specter of Missouri last year, and kind of points out that when Jalen Carter went down with that sprained knee in that 4-game stretch is when the run defense started to falter a little bit. And honestly, that run defense has been the key to everything for Georgia defensively the last couple of years.
Well, yeah, they've made teams one-dimensional. I mean, they've forced teams to throw the ball and second and third and long situations, not getting into second and manageable. So that is a concern. I was with one of those defensive linemen, Warren Brinson, the other day, and I asked him that question. I said, okay, if you look at your team, you're a senior leader. What is the worry in the locker room? And he's like, well, we're not really worried, but I will say that I would assume people would say the defensive line. So he's kind of calling his position group out. Like, we know as a group, we have to excel because of everything we've lost the past 2 years. Like, listen, they got elite linebackers. You returned both linebackers from last year. I think the secondary is going to be the best it's been in 2 years. When you got guys like Javon Bullard and Lassiter and Malachi Starks back, like that secondary is loaded with talent. So I think that's part of the issue is you look at the defense as a whole and you say, okay, DBs are great, linebackers are great, defensive line we think is good, but it's not as strong as the other two positions. So obviously that's going to be the area we focus on. So I think it's still going to be better than 90% of the country. Is it as good as it's been the past 2 years? Probably not. I mean, Jalen Carter, if you take away the incident in January, probably is a top 3 pick in the NFL draft, still is a top 10 pick. They have been elite at D-line. So I do think it is a slight step back this year, but that's why it's okay because you do have other two position groups that should hopefully, take their game to another level because they're a little bit stronger this season.
Yeah, I mean, you can sum it up with this. The Georgia defense is not a concern. Like, no, like the Georgia defense is not going to hold them back. That's going to continue to be the strength upon which the championships are built. That's Kirby Smart's side of the ball. So, yeah, I'm not concerned about the D-line. Although, again, maybe it's not as overbearingly good. And then we arrive at reason number 3. And again, Aaron, my validation tour continues because here is Emerson, a man who knows the Georgia football team as well as any other, calling out some of the exact same stuff that outside looking in I'm concerned about. And he mentions the schedule. And he kind of mentions the fact that you don't have any great challenges to zero in on to kind of prep you for when it matters most. I mean, you mentioned South Carolina. If you look mortal against South Carolina, that's going to send alarm bells that won't and it'll create a negativity that won't get erased because you're not going to have anybody to prove it against for a while. You'll just have that negativity kind of build. So, look, I remain saying that I think the schedule, unfortunately for Georgia, is actually a weakness because while it will keep them fresh, I don't know if they're going to really know what it's like to be in a dogfight. And then if Carson Beck and Bobo suddenly get into a dogfight in the SEC championship or the semifinal, how do they respond?
I'm hoping that South Carolina is a dogfight. Honestly, I don't think it is. I think South Carolina is slightly overrated heading into the season. A lot of people and a lot of Carolina fans think that they're going to have the same kind of year they had last year, if not better. And I just kind of hesitate on saying that South Carolina, who had 2 massive wins in the season, are going to be able to replicate that again this year. So I think Georgia handles business, but I would like to see them. I mean, I would like to see a game similar to what Georgia had last year versus Missouri, a nail biter, a game where maybe you're even struggling heading into the fourth quarter. Like they need that. Like you said, like you need that moment where shit hits the fan a little bit. You got to look at the guy next to you and say, "Hey, we got to find a way to win this football game." And then from there, kind of, I think for Kirby, gives him a little ammunition in the locker room to really let the guys know, like, hey, guys, you aren't as good as you think you are. This isn't last year. This isn't the year before. So, like, to me, that would be if all times, I'm sure, Kirby doesn't want to have a game where it's kind of teetering. But if any time to have it, it would be week 3 for South Carolina, because then I guarantee you would see a much more focused, much more, in your face, kick ass football team for the rest of the season.
Okay, yeah, I could see that too. You're right. I apologize. A struggling game against South Carolina could go one of a couple of ways. And really, if you zeroed in on Carson Beck, like if he struggled in that game, that would be the fascinating thing to focus on. Does he respond or does he collapse? And then if he collapses, are you suddenly looking at Gunnar Stockton and Brock Vandergriff conversation starting up again, which is always just a miserable place to be in the middle of the season. But as you can tell, we are trying to critique that which is great, right? So we're finding minor imperfections and seeing if we'll hold them back because, again, it's impossible to win a championship 3 times in a row. Item number 2 on today's show. You'll have to forgive me. I don't have my notes like I normally do when I'm doing these shows, so I'm going to paraphrase here. But at Pac-12 Media Days, Dan Lanning was asked about Colorado leaving for the Big 12. And Lanning was pretty dismissive, being like, I mean, remind me again, what have they won? What have they meant to this conference? What have they done since they got here? And from a purely factual basis, he's not wrong, right? I think it was like 2016, Colorado maybe randomly won their half of the Pac-12 or something. I think a 10-win season.
Yep.
Maybe they played the championship game. Besides that, they have been wholly irrelevant to the Pac-12. So I get where Lanning is coming from there, absolutely, and objectively, he's right. The same way that objectively Brent Venables going after Prime was really fucking stupid. Because of course, Venables, you didn't change over the roster the same way. You took over 4 stars, 5 stars. The only thing, and I'm not saying Lanning's wrong because he doesn't really need to engage in this sort of stuff. But if we're discussing it, the reason why Colorado leaving the Pac-12 is a big deal, again, is not because of Colorado and not because of what they've done to the guys. It's not because you're losing a USC, a team that had a chance to win championships. It's not because you're losing one of those big brands. It's just the potential domino that starts the chain reaction that leads to the dissolution of the Pac-12. So I mean, Lanning's right. Lanning's right. They have been irrelevant to the conference, but they may be the canary in the coal mine that is signaling the Pac-12's doom.
Well, it's a money issue too, which is part of the whole domino effect you alluded to. Like, I think like Colorado as a football team maybe is what he said. Like, it hasn't been relevant for the Pac-12 for quite some time, but Deion Sanders is relevant right now to college football. Deion Sanders is relevant to TVs and TV ratings and major networks and getting dollar bills to that conference. Like, that's the biggest thing. Like, losing Colorado, whatever. Losing Deion, who is going to be on prime time week 1 because of Deion Sanders, not because of Colorado, to me is the bigger issue. So he moves as a coach, moves the needle when it comes to media, media talk, media discussion, YouTube clicks, hashtags, big network TV. He moves that needle more than any other coach in that conference. That's what you're losing. And that's going to hurt your university at the end of the day too.
Yeah, and again, Oregon's such a they're going to be fascinating to watch because I know they're presenting a very united front with the Pac-12, but Phil Knight has put a lot into trying to make Oregon football nationally relevant, and they have a quarterback. It looks like they have their coach. Forget about the quarterback thing because he's not going to be there long term. They should be really good this year. But my point is more the long-term future of Oregon. That is not a school. Phil Knight is not a booster who's going to want to get left in the dust.
No.
He wants Oregon to continue to be relevant, and it's hard to see if you have the mass exodus out of the Pac-12. Where does that put Oregon? Do they accept a rate deal first, like we said, to join the Big Ten, SEC? Like, we're going?
I would say we should be hearing in the next, I would say, 24 hours. We say this once a week at least. The Pac-12 is supposed to be releasing what this deal is in the next 24 hours. Read an article yesterday. It was going to be within 48 hours. Now we're in 24 hours. And then Arizona is also meeting as well, their board of regents, to most likely discuss what is going on and what direction they want to go into. So I think we're going to learn a lot about who's staying, who's going, what this deal is, and how that's going to affect everything going on. I mean, the dominoes may really start falling as soon as possibly tomorrow.
At this point, it's the boy who cried wolf, dude. I'll react to the deal when it happens. I'll never forget the entire show we did back in March about the Arizona president saying it was going to be done in a couple of weeks and that it was going to be a bigger number in the Big 12. So I'll believe when I see it. And then our final story for the day today, it's an insane boy. And there's just really, it's this cat, TJ Dudley, a 2022 4-star player. He goes to Clemson, and it was announced about 3 days ago that he was going to be joining the Ole Miss Rebels. He had been removed for Clemson for an undisclosed violation of team rules. And look, Dabo said it's really unfortunate. He's a really good kid, great kid, and but he broke team rules, and so he had to go. Allegedly, and there seems to be legs here, but allegedly, the thing that he was kicked off for was filming his teammates in the locker room with them, unbeknownst to them, and then posting it on OnlyFans. Which again, if this is true, if it's not true, then I feel awful for TJ Dudley, because this rumor's been picked up in a lot of legitimate ways. I've even seen some people say they've seen the videos. Well, again, we'll continue to monitor the situation, but if this is true, I mean, not only that's again criminal. I don't think you're allowed to.
I feel like very criminal.
Like, that's like not unlike sneaking like a hidden camera in like a changing room, or like the horrible Aaron Andrews experience from like a decade ago or whatever that was. Like, it's the same type of deal. So it would feel like a bit weird that all he did was get kicked off the team. But I mean, I don't know how I would react if I learned that one of my friends was selling my nudes on OnlyFans. I think I'd be pretty pissed.
I'd be extremely pissed. I want to know what kind of money I brought in too, for goodness sakes. Like, come on, let me get some of that cut. Like, was my ass, making money for you, and I want some of that revenue. We need to figure out if our OnlyFans project would work or not at the end of the day. But
only snaps.
It's
only if the volume drops.
How could you listen? We had an issue at Georgia, which we had one of our equipment guys put a camera in our showers. Yeah, he got in trouble like 2 or 3 years ago, and I just don't know how long this dates back to footage. I don't know if he was seeing me doing slip and slides in the bathroom butt naked or not.
Were you doing slip and slides on the bathroom floor?
No, the kickers and punters they would like lather it up in soap, and then after wins they would like slide back and forth. It was quite disturbing.
I'm disgusting, bro. But the bathroom floor is only for feet.
Or the shower.
Yeah, the shower floor is only for feet to touch. It's not for body parts to touch.
Hey, that's why they're kickers. That's why they're kickers.
That's true.
Yeah, they're kickers.
I would say this again. I do find this all hard to believe. Okay, I really find it hard to believe.
How he's not arrested for this? You'd be arrested for this.
Exactly. Yeah. I find it hard to believe, but I do think it's kind of funny. And I will say this: if you're talking about profitable venture, like in terms of just the pure quality of the bodies that you're photographing, you're going to be hard pressed to find better nudes than an elite college football locker room. Like that is the kind of hardcore truth, right? Very in shape people, a lot of abs, a lot of impressive phalluses. If that's what you're into, like, now certainly, obviously, you have to have consent, you have to do all of these things, but just from a pure quality of the nude, that is it's basically the best room of nude male models that you could hope for.
No, there's no way this would not have gone out though by now. Like, this would have been all over the place.
Well, it's all very new. I mean, it's just starting to break, like end of yesterday, beginning of
today. But I'm saying, like, on OnlyFans, it would have been all over the place as soon as one picture was posted.
Maybe so. I mean, you're right. It feels hard to believe, and if it's not
very
true,
hard
I feel bad for Dudley. Maybe we should have not said his name. Actually, now that I'm kind of thinking about it out loud, but what if? I mean, what would you do when that guy suddenly shows up in your locker room if you're Ole Miss? I'm kind of like, hold on, bro. Hold on, dog. What'd you do with that phone?
Yeah, where's your phone? Now, bro? Hey, you know what I would do? I'd put a basket right as soon as you walk into the locker room with his name on it. It'd say, his name,
phone in the basket?
Phone in the basket. You guys is putting your phone in the basket as soon as you walk in the locker room. That's what I'm telling them. I'm not playing that game.
For everybody, actually. Then you can do some more like Northwestern Haze.
Yeah.
All right, that's gonna do it for today's show. Quick little vacation edition of Snaps. I've got to go back to sleeping with my wife and drinking wine. Not to brag, Aaron. I guarantee I've had way more sex with my wife than yours. So congratulations
Probably.
to me.
Good for you.
Yeah, I'm feeling good about it. I really am. And I just want to give a huge thank you to everybody. Obviously Paul Farrington, Pat Gunther, Ryan Brumley, Danny Cardenas, Adam Gracia, Chris, everybody else who helps make sure. Have a huge thank you to the Volume. Huge thank you to our wonderful families for being understanding, letting us do this on vacation. Thank you to Sharon for driving the YouTube views up. And a huge thank you, most of all, to the listeners. YouTube.com/@VolumeSnaps. Share with your friends. Got some good momentum going. It's August. We're going to continue to blow this thing up. And then Snaps Podcast, Apple, Spotify. You can Google it. It'll be right there at the top. Wherever you get it, rate and review it. We love you, and we'll see you tomorrow for some new Vacation Snaps.